This video is part 2 of a continuing series of Reddit confession videos. In this subreddit, people admit their wrongdoings, acknowledge their guilt, and alleviate their conscience, which makes for some interesting stories. Enjoy the video. I hit my mom in the past and cannot forgive myself over it. Obligatory throwaway. Before I begin anything, I just want to clarify that I do not encourage this sort of behavior. I hit my mom in the past, and I regret every second of it. My father died in my adolescence. I love my mom, and I'm sure she loves me too. I am 17 years old. My mom is a little over 50 years of age. She has weak knees, diabetes, and high blood pressure. I know this does not look good on me. I know what I did was terrible. But it's not like started acting like this out of nowhere. I'm generally a very calm person. A little backstory on my mom. She is a sort of like a helicopter parent. She is controlling about most of the things I do. She constantly reminded me of my family's mental history. My mom is very close to me. Sometimes we sleep in the same bed. Don't worry, that's normal in my culture. My mom deeply worries about my study. She worries to the point that when I was depressed and literally did nothing, she called a relative who is a psychiatrist and he brought 2 more doctors with him. They told me that I have to study for my future. From then on I'm doing good in my studies. My mom literally told me that her only will to live is to give me a good education. I am on the verge of completing my school life. I couldn't take it anymore. I did not hit her hard. I usually just pushed her. But more than once I slapped her. Once I threw a remote which hit her forehead. That was not the only time I hit her. I did hit her hard once many years ago. I think I was 14-15 then. I regret every second of it. I'm literally tearing up as I'm typing now. I don't know what to do. I am constantly reminded of what I did. I asked for forgiveness from my mom. She said she forgave me, and I know she did. But I cannot forgive myself. It also doesn't help that I have anxiety. I steal for the fun, thrill and for the adrenaline. So as a side note, I'll never steal anything from small businesses or people, but I have no problem stealing from big companies. Sometimes when I'm bored, I'll go to the big shops and steal things like dog toys, jewelry, facial products, hairstyling wax, expensive shampoos, and books. Most of the time I'll scan them on the fruit and veg scales as something else, like carrots or pears, so technically I'm paying for them, just not the determined price. Other times I'll peel off the sticker and just put them in my coat jacket and pay for the other items I have in my basket as to not raise suspicion. In clothing stores the same thing. If I like some bracelets, I'll shove them in a pocket of some jeans, go and try them on. Then in the changing room I'll take them out of the packaging and hide them somewhere, usually in my sock or shoe. I went on an armed robbery, burglary spree as a strung-out Dr. G addict between 2013-2015. I was addicted to heroin and pain pills real bad and I couldn't hold down a job. So, I got it in my head that I had nothing to live for and I didn't care about anything but the dope. So I started doing robberies, mostly gas stations out in the middle of nowhere. I live in rural North Carolina and there are plenty of isolated stores to hit if one is so inclined. Also broke into foreclosed homes and ripped copper out of the walls and older houses with copper pipes. Those are the best. I did all of this to support my habit. I wore a hoodie and beanie with a bandana over my face with sunglasses and carried either my old Ruger Mini 14 or a Bursa Thunderpoint 380. Met the love of my life in 2015 and realized I had a reason to live and started having a better outlook on life, so I straightened up and now I work in the gun industry, something I've always had a huge passion for. Also, for the record, I know I'm a piece of SHT and if I would have been shot going into any of these places I would have absolutely deserved it, but at the time I 100% did not care. Never planned on hurting anyone and didn't want to, but I most certainly would have if it came down to a situation where they were preventing me from getting away. I'll be honest, I don't have much of a conscience, but I know the difference between right and wrong, and I know it was a terrible thing. I was raised better than that, but heroin doesn't give a damn about your morals. Heroin gets what heroin wants. I'll never forget the look on some of those people's faces when they were looking down the barrel of my rifle. Complete terror and shock. Some people weren't afraid, or at least didn't show it. They just looked at me with a blank face, put the money in a bag and tossed it at me. Another thing that caused me to stop was my passion for firearms. If something happened where I got caught, I'd have been a felon and never, legally, allowed to own them anymore. I wasn't gonna be taken alive though if I could help it. I'm married and a dad now, and I wouldn't in a million years do any of that again, but there's my confession. God forgive me. I broke into a bank-owned house and stole things. I used to live next to this really cool house that had been abandoned and foreclosed on. I barely knew the people who used to live there, but I did know they'd left in a hurry and only took what they absolutely needed. This was during the real estate crash, and the bank had bigger fish to fry, so they padlocked the doors and sat on the house for years. Well, I have to admit, my curiosity got the best of me. It's not like I'm a criminal. I've never even shoplifted or tried to lie my way out of a speeding ticket, but the house was there, empty of humans, and full of nice things, and I had free reign of the connecting backyard and could come and go as I please without anyone ever knowing. One day I took an old pair of bolt cutters and broke into the basement bulkhead, and my friend and I combed all through the house and took all kinds of stuff. I got clothing, sports gear and kids' toys, decorations, tools, I'll even admit to pantry items. Those were lean times for my family as well. Anyway, once we were done, I closed the house back up again, but since the padlock was now broken, someone else ended up breaking in later, and they weren't so good about closing back up again when they left. The basement bulkhead was left standing open during winter, and the pipes froze and burst, flooded the basement and first floor. The bank eventually came around and found the situation. They shut off the water and padlocked the doors again. I never went back in, and eventually the house sold at auction. I still have some of the things I took from that house. I stole headphones from my workplace despite knowing whom they belonged to. Those really nice Bose headphones, that is, $200, had been left behind at my workplace a couple of weeks ago, and after a week passed I got curious and connected to them via Bluetooth. The owner's name showed up, and as I keep track of everyone who comes into work, I knew exactly who owned them, and they'd been coming in almost every day with no mention of them. I waited another week until the original owner came in wearing new Bose headphones. I've never had the luxury to buy myself earphones of any kind, always using the ones that came with my phone till both speakers blew. Seeing as they owned a new pair and didn't seem to care for the old ones, I took them, renamed them, and passed it off as a gift to myself. The joy of listening to crisp, clear music while going about my business. I don't feel guilty at all. I soiled myself and let the class special needs girl take the fall for it. 1999. Edit, 2001, not 1999. My 6th grade class was in a temporary building off-site from the main building at school. We had our own bathroom inside the temp. A small bathroom with a single toilet and no urinal. At the time, my parents were ungodly strict and corporal when it came to media. Inappropriate TV shows and music was not only forbidden, but I would land myself in multi-week-long grounding sessions for getting caught with it. I had barely befriended the skaters of the school. One of them had an older brother named Trevor who would walk to school grounds during lunch since our playground was open to a massive field. I agreed to trade him $20 in quarters for a copy of Iowa by Slipknot. I was desperate and wasn't gonna take no for an answer. The only problem was that well before lunch I had to defecate, but my nerves over the deal falling through or getting caught by my parents was too great to go. I met Trevor and the boys at the tree line. I handed over the heavy bag of quarters and got my CD. To my surprise, the group of kids I deemed to be too cool to ever give me the time of day suddenly wanted to schmooze with me, seemingly impressed by my courage to import this forbidden item into my home. The adrenaline died down and the pulses of needing to go kept coming in serious waves. I didn't want to seem uncool though. Right? So, I stayed. Each minute that passed I felt pee-op escaping until finally it felt complete out and bunched up into my underwear. I said my abrupt goodbyes and ran to the temp building. Glancing at the clock, I could see it was about 3 minutes until the kids came back inside. I took my pants and underwear off and attempted to empty my underwear into the toilet. The large T-Rod landed and stuck solidly on the seat. Right at that moment, I heard the sound of laughter entering the classroom. I stuffed my underwear into the trash under a layer of used paper towels, put my pants back on and ran to my seat before too many people could notice I was in the bathroom. The classroom procedure after lunch was to read in silence for 30 minutes. I picked up my Animorphs book and pretended to read. Just a mere 10 minutes into reading time, Ben T got up and went to use the bathroom. My heart sank into my groin. A few seconds later he returned and went straight for our teacher, Mr. George. I saw him hunched over whispering in his ear and a look of surprise pop up on Mr. George's face. This had to be it. I had to be F-ed. Expecting slaughter at any second, to my absolute confusion and dismay, Mr. George picked up the phone, dialed an extension and stepped out of the front door to the class onto the steps of the temp building, stretching the phone cord with him. About 2 minutes later he returned to his desk and continued sitting there in silence. I was completely baffled. By the 3rd minute, the classroom door opened, and it was Miss Coda's ... the school's special needs teacher. She promptly went for the desk of Megan M., the class special needs student with severe retardation who had to wear diapers beneath her sweats. Her and Mr. George escorted her out of the temp. We sat there in silence until the custodian arrived. We didn't see Megan back in class for the rest of the semester. My parents never caught me with the CD. TLDR, I pooped my pants while buying a CD I wasn't supposed to have from another kid. I accidentally dropped my turd on the classroom toilet seat and the special needs student took the blame for it and was pulled out of regular class. In 8th grade, I stole rare and valuable coins to buy candy with. I should have known that the $1.87 that I spent on a soda could have been sold for $50. I broke a $4,000 set of coins to buy $100 worth of junk food. When I got caught, I was in science class and got a text from my dad. I was terrified because my dad wasn't angry over text messages, he just told me that we would have a talk. I didn't know what that would entail, but I was ready to be beaten. My dad has never hit me except for the time I punched his balls and even then, it didn't bruise. When I got home, my dad sat me down and said, "I know that you're not a bad person, you just messed up this time." That really hit hard, and I started to cry because for the past 3 hours I was mentally effing myself up. He explained that those coins were the last memento of my mom. This hurt me the worst because I had never met his mom, but I tried to imagine if I were in his shoes. He hugged me and said that he wasn't angry, and he hoped that this would be a good lesson for me. I got mild punishments. TL, Doctor, my dad is a saint. Edit, because 2 people have commented this. Yes, my dad is alive, and yes, I am planning on buying the coin set for him in the future. Edit, because 3 people have commented this. Me and my dad were horsing around, and I got PC. And my balls not having dropped yet, I didn't understand how painful getting hit in the nuts was. TL, Doctor, it was at that moment he knew he F'd up. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more quality content. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions. Goodbye.